Listen to the sound of footsteps in the dark, to voices that may not be quite human, to the sound of screams in the night. The Haunted Cabaret, the home of all things horror, on Rhode-IslandFreeRadio.org, with your host, George Garner. The Haunted Cabaret starts now.
Suhteessa kyllä. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody. Another night out on the street, stopping for my usual scene. Bartender, please. Vodka and tonic's my favorite drink. I go like anything, colored pink. That just stinks. Well, it's not for me. It feels like somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something. Learn patient and dirty thought. Live out of place and everything's short. The sun coming on. Yeah, keep the germ on. Splat the floor. Drink, drink, drink. Takes it out. What can see? Hey, what's in that drink? Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. In my drink. In my drink. In my drink. So you think it's funny? I'm calling you back. Going to stick for some things to drink. Feel a little drunk. What do you care what you think of me? Somebody put something in my drink. What you think? Hey dude, give me a drink. Feels like somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my drink. Somebody put something. Somebody put something in my
All right, that was, well, the song was Somebody Put Something in My Drink, written by the Ramones, but that wasn't the Ramones, as you might have picked up on. That was Children of Bodom doing a very kick-ass cover, starting off this year's episodes of the Haunted Cabaret here on Rhode Island Free Radio. I'm your host, George Garner. At the controls is Tony Jones, and that's just about it tonight, right?
What a way to kick off the new year with that tune.
I'll tell you.
That's never made the playlist before either, I don't think. Not that version.
No, I don't think so. I think that's a deep cut even for us.
Yeah.
I don't even know where it came from.
I made an attempt to cover that song years and years ago, even before we were playing together, and I just couldn't pull it off. I couldn't get that raunchy sound that I wanted.
Right. I mean, when you're doing a Ramones cover, you basically have two choices. One is to just snarl like Dee Dee, because actually probably just one choice. You can try to snarl like Dee Dee, because if you try to do the Joey Ramone vocals, I mean, you just end up sounding like a weak Joey Ramone. So, especially on that song. I mean, that's from the Ramones' Animal Boy. Yeah, that's what album.
Unless you
that's
can
from.
afford to hire Phil Spector to work with you.
Phil-
He'll get you sounding right with a pistol.
I don't know. I think the Ramones were too terrified because I don't know. I've listened to that Phil Spector Ramones album quite a few times, and End of the Century that was the one. Yeah, that they did with Ramones did with Phil Spector, and giving Phil Spector the benefit of a doubt, the Ramones didn't bring all their best songs to that album, to that recording session. I mean, there was some real crap on that record, which is very unusual for the Ramones, but. They also brought stuff like This Ain't Havana and Rock and Roll High School and Rock and Roll Radio. And, Phil Spector, he did the Wall of Sound thing, Ramones meet Ronettes. But the problem there was that Dee Dee and Johnny Ramone didn't really get along too well with Phil Spector.
Yeah.
And there was a reason for that. I learned afterwards that Phil Spector really was only interested in Joey Ramone as far as, talent, as far as recording artist. What Phil Spector would have preferred to do, and I think what he had in mind, was to try to showcase Joey Ramone's vocals talents at the expense of the rest of the band, and then he wanted to go from there. He was kind of instigating, this was his way of subtly instigating Joey Ramone to try to go solo and work with him. And that's why you got the track on End of the Century, Baby I Love You, which was, I forget which Phil Spector act it was that originally recorded that. But, yeah, that's why that track there is Joey Ramone basically solo, singing with other, Phil Spector soundtracks. In other words, none of the other Ramones played on it. So, yeah, I think there was a little bit of insidiousness there on the part of Phil Spector. He had ulterior motives. And, probably Johnny and Dee Dee Ramone sensed this and thus wanted to kill him. And plus for the fact that he made Johnny Ramone hit the opening chords of Rock and Roll High School, I think, around 30 or 40 times. Before he picked that's the right one.
I guess the same thing was true with Marky. He'd make him hit the drum over and over again for an hour.
Yeah, I wonder if it was out of real creative endeavor or just to see how far he could aggravate them. Maybe he wanted to aggravate them to the point where they tried to kill him so he had an excuse to pull his pistol. Yeah. Now Phil Spector, he eventually did shoot somebody, right?
Yeah, shot his old lady.
Yeah, which I guess is better than shooting one of the Ramones. I mean, his old lady never recorded Cretin Hop. But, but still, which is, I think, took a lot of people by surprise because a lot of people had Phil Spector picked as somebody that was all talk, like to wave it around, no action. So,
couldn't wait.
So she found out different. That's probably the last thing she said before he pulled the trigger was, "Well, you didn't shoot those nasty Ramones. You're not going to shoot anybody." And then bang, down she went. Now, is Phil Spector? Is he still in prison?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is a shame because personality issues aside, he recorded some really good stuff back in the day. And plus he had he was married to Ronnie Spector.
Yeah.
Who, as anybody who likes to look into 60s, girl group music would know. I mean, she was hot. I mean, she was one of the ultimate hot female lead vocalists probably in musical history.
In 2009, Spector got 19 years in jail, so he won't be released until he's 88 years old.
And probably too senile to man the control boards anymore. Yeah. Oh, well. Oh, maybe we should see if we could go in there and record with him in prison.
Yeah.
We'll bring the equipment to him.
Get some cheap labor.
Yeah. And he probably won't be as demanding in prison. Phil, you're going to do this for minimum. And you're not going to give us too many orders, so we're just going to throw you in that shower and tell you to pick up the soap. Yeah. Well,
they spent $200,000 on End of the Century when their first album cost $6,000 and their second album cost $10,000. Imagine what we could do with $200,000 to record an album. I don't think we've ever spent more than maybe $1,000 because we won $1,000. Joe Moody had a ton of cigarettes that week.
He did. And I still miss Joe Moody. I mean, he was the one guy that recorded us or anybody I know that understood us.
Yeah.
which is, probably doesn't say much for his state of mind. But, we were great and are grateful, for having recorded with Joe Moody. Yeah, so, I don't know. Maybe, Phil Spector, we'll see what jail he's in. We'll bring him some cigarettes too. See, bring a couple of packages or cases for the warden, and get right in there.
Soap on a rope.
Yeah, something. Yeah, we haven't recorded. We haven't recorded in a while. We should get something done. If we
got that crazy long hair now, that can't be going good for him in prison.
No, I think actually probably somebody ordered him to grow that crazy long hair. So that when he bends, no, okay, let's not get into that. That's, we'll try to keep. Well, not that this is ever a family-oriented show. So actually, what am I worried about now? I'm certainly not about to turn over a new leaf this New Year's Day. This New Year's Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I lose track. I mean, I live a lifestyle that's pretty much scheduleless. I mean, much to the regret of. I mean, in the past year, I picked up a new wife, a house. I think I'm supposed to be scheduled now.
Yeah. You're supposed to be on the 9 to 5.
I think so. Maybe that's what. Yeah, maybe that's what she keeps telling me, and it just doesn't process somewhere between the ears and the inner cortex of the brain. Oh well. All we can do is soldier on. Before we get on with more chit chat, let's go back to the music, because Tony's put together quite a playlist for this week, and I know last time we only got to like 3 songs by the time we finished the end of the program. Yeah, let's try to do better this time. Let's go with some Black Sabbath, one of my favorite Sabbath albums, Never Say Die, and this is the title track here on Rhode Island Free Radio.
Looking for the answers that they know inside. Searching for a reason.
All right, that's Black Sabbath, Never Say Die. And like I said, it's one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums, which I think puts me in a minority of Black Sabbath fans with that one. That was, I think, the sixth and final album that they made with, the original lineup before Ozzy left the band. Yeah, I'm exceptional in a couple of ways when it comes to, like, the old school classic rock bands, I guess you'd call them. Never Say Die and Sabotage are my two favorite Black Sabbath albums. The one that I would really get excoriated for, I think that's the word, disemboweled for maybe, would be my choice of Rolling Stones, though, because I mentioned in conversation with somebody that one of my favorite Stones albums is Dirty Work, and that pretty much I learned. I think it was from you, Tony, that I learned that Rolling Stones album pretty much has the condemnation of the entire Rolling Stones nation.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Because
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I know that they didn't record the thing traditionally in the studio. I know that they sent some of the music tracks to Mick Jagger in some other country, and that's as close as Mick Jagger got to the recording session. I think that might be part of it. There was a lot of that, synthesized, synthesized guitar and drum tracks, because this was the 80s.
Yeah, 86, in the hot time of when everybody decided they were going to buy a Korg keyboard.
Right, and so they sent a bunch of synthesized tracks over to Mick Jagger, who I think was in Europe somewhere, and he did the vocals. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I think the whole thing, it feels like in the nastiness, which is probably why it appeals to me. In the nastiness of the lyrics and everything, especially you've got something filthy living in your mouth. That's probably my favorite Keith Richards lyric of all time. It has to be. The whole thing feels like a Keith Richards project. For anybody that likes the music from the Stones, Keith Richards, that 80s period. Ranch rock. It's ranch rock is what it is. I mean, if Keith Richards produces it, it's ranch rock. That's basically what it is. But so it was a Keith Richards project in everything but name. Yeah, and something dirty living in your mouth. Every time I listen to that song and hear that line, I see one of my ex-girlfriends. I don't know. I think that's a compliment to her, actually. That every time I listen to a Rolling Stones song I love, I picture Melissa. Yep. I think the only woman to give me some kind of infectious thing in my mouth that lasted for about, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 weeks. Just as I was on the verge of going to see the doctor, it went away. So she had something, living in her, and it transferred over to me, some kind of insane alien movie or something like that.
After all those late nights we spent at Club Hell back in the day and Club Decadence in more recent days,
I know, never picked up a thing.
Not
there.
Even a case of pink eye over the years.
Well, not from those clubs.
I even had to use the bathroom at Hell once.
To do what, though? If there are some activities that if you had used that bathroom in Club Hell for those activities, you would have been in the hospital.
Need a poncho.
Now the pink eye. Let's see. You know what I just realized? That we're doing the end of the New Year's looking back thing, and I didn't even realize. The only difference is that when I look back, I don't look at the things that most people look back upon with fondness. So far, I've only managed to look back at diseases, nasty sluts, and
nasty sluts with diseases.
With diseases, and to the accompaniment of raunchy music. I mean, I might as well finish out the cycle by my pink eye episode was, which I did get. I didn't get it in a club though. I got it from a woman I took home from the club, which is close. No, she took me home. Oh, I know I remember what happened. This was the time that drummer's name was CJ. This was back in the Goners before. I think even before. Yeah, Tony, before you joined the band. And he had a friend. And now when a drummer in your band tells you that he has a friend, I've learned this from CJ. I've learned this from Tony Jones. Don't.
Yeah. When a drummer has rejected a woman
and tries to pawn him off to a friend,
and you're next, so she'll leave you alone.
Yeah, and the drummer is smiling when he makes the suggestion. And in this case, when the woman in question is a goth chick, and this, by the way, no offense to any goth chicks out there, but I swore off dating goth chicks because of this, because I realized that black makeup could be for a reason.
Yeah.
It can hide many things.
It can cover anything.
And it did. And so I woke up in her apartment the next morning. Almost stepped in cat shit on the floor.
There's something about goth chicks and being cat hoarders.
There is. And there's always cat shit either on the floor or in the cat litter box that hasn't been cleaned for 6 months.
Or in her bed.
Well, no, there were stuffed animals. There were Muppet stuffed animals in her bed. Very peculiar. And and the other thing that happened in her bed is in the morning light, a lot of the black makeup had rubbed off on the pillow. So I'm not sure. I could have either gotten this pink eye from the cat. I could have got it. I don't know what's most likely from the cat
shit,
cat shit, from the makeup. I don't know. It was a festering hotbed of disease. I can tell you that. Yeah. So no. Last time with a goth chick.
Lucky you didn't get cat scratch fever.
At least then I would have been able to play the song. Yeah, Ted Nugent. Oh, my goodness. Talk about, is Ted Nugent even spoken of these days?
Mostly for hunting than anything with music.
Right, but I mean, because of his fanatical conservative politics, right? I mean, I think if you mention his name as like mentioning Dracula in a Catholic church, it's just not allowed. They hold up crosses and everything, and thou shalt not play his music. Thou shalt. I think the only time I ever played a song of Ted Nugent's was when I was in the Headcutters with Adam Myrig, who was a mental problem in and of himself. The only man fearless enough to do that. The only comparable fearless moment I remember that compares to playing Ted Nugent these days would be when our own Tony Jones said, "Let's play the Ramones song, Today Your Love, Tomorrow the World." And we played it when we did that benefit at the Perishable Theater in downtown liberal Providence, the sanctuary city, which it wasn't yet, but now it is, I guess.
They sent us a nice thank you note afterwards, but we definitely were not asked back.
Yeah, I mean, they have, the more idealistic and left-wing people are, the less of a sense of humor they have. Of course, and actually I remember we were playing that set, and it was pretty well received until we did that song. And at the end of that song, there was an echoing, deafening silence. Yeah. And you looked at out there, and all you saw was these RISD and Brown University students' eyes looking at us wide and looking at the floor.
Just your typical look of if you in your head thought of what an art student looks like. That's what everybody in the crowd here looked like.
Right. Stunned. And baffled.
Yeah.
And baffled. Yeah. So I don't know, did that experience even put you off doing that song, Tony, or did we actually play that again? That was a pretty frightening. It was kind of like being surrounded by the Children of the Corn or something.
I think the reason we stopped playing it is because the changes were too hard.
Well,
It took us forever to get it down in the first place.
Well, it took us forever to find a drummer that would actually break time at the end of a Ramones song. Yeah, that's right. The breakdown at the end of the song, it was just beyond most of our drummers. As a matter of fact, speaking of our recorded Ramones song, though, we still have a Ramones song that we recorded at Danger Studios in Mothballs in Cretan Hop. We do. Yeah. Someday I have to get Tony to overcome his penny pinching ways and actually contact the Harry Fox. What would that be? Copyright agency. In other words, we need to buy the rights to put out the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's going to be a tough one because
especially that some of us see back in the day it wouldn't have mattered, right? But now some of us here among us are wealthy landowners, and getting sued means something completely different than when you get sued and the only thing you have is a couple of old comic books in the back of your car.
Well, now I don't even have the 2 comic books in the back of my car. And by the way, I was smart enough. Our property is in my wife's name only. I mean, yeah, I wasn't dumb enough to put, doing this show and playing in our band. And no, I was not dumb enough to put, the house in which we shelter from the 10-degree weather. I was not about to put that in my name. No, no, it's safer in hers. But yeah, so they can sue me. Tony, don't feel free if you got any ideas that
we have Action Comics #5 over there. I believe that comic book is worth about $99 to $100. So there's a start for the lawsuit.
Talk about things you shouldn't announce on the radio.
Yeah, especially in this neighborhood.
Well, yeah, I mean, but there are people that will sue for $99. I mean, think of our old guitarist, Roger. Yeah, guy literally sued the band for, what was it, Tony, 25 cents in royalties?
99 cents.
99 cents.
But it had cost me $10 to put it up there for sale.
And again, segues make themselves, because next up on our playlist,
This song makes me think of Beavis and Butthead.
It does. Yeah, Beavis and Butthead saying that was the shittiest music video they ever saw. We still like Judas Priest and everything, but this video sucks. Luckily for us, though, the song doesn't. This one's for Roger and his 99-cent lawsuit. Breaking the Law, Judas Priest, here on Rhode Island Free Radio.
Was completely wasting, out of working down. All inside, it's so frustrating as I drift from town to town. Feels though nobody cares if I live or die. So I might as well begin to put some action in my life. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law. So much for the golden future, I can't even start. I've had every promise broken, there's anger in my heart. You don't know what it's like, you don't have a clue. If you think you'd find yourself doing the same thing too. Breaking the law. Breaking the law, 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 breaking the law. You don't know what it's like.
All right, that was Breaking the Law, Judas Priest, from the British Steel album. And Tony's right. You can't get Beavis and Butthead's voices out. If you were growing up in the 1980s, you cannot get Beavis and Butthead's voices out of your head when you listen to that song. Just like Kip Winger will never get Beavis and Butthead's T-shirt out of his head. And now, as much as our buddy Allison Hell might, speak well of the talents of Kip Winger, it's and even my brother. I was laughing. I told my brother, Kip Winger, and apparently my brother saw Kip Winger at Mohegan Sun Casino at the Wolf Den, for free, which is the only way he would go. He would go see Kip Winger's band. But he said Kip Winger was nothing special, but he said he did bring a good band with him. So, okay, but still, there's that damning T-shirt, which will never die on his reputation. Of course, the T-shirt that Beavis wore was Metallica, a band I hate above all others. I mean, not just for the music, but for being the biggest corporate asshole band. I mean, people talk about the Rolling Stones and Chuck Berry and Kiss being corporate bands. No, Metallica. Metallica is the band that went into the courtroom and sided with the big record companies and music producers against Napster back in the day. Yeah. And I don't care how many albums they release, how much therapy they go through.
Yeah, they've been to couples counseling.
Yeah, they have. And they make a wonderful pair of couples. They really do. I mean, no, the way you're supposed to deal with not getting along in a band is you do like the Ramones. You gut it out for years. Just hate each other's guts for years in the same band. Bring no rational thought to it whatsoever. I mean, yeah, because the Ramones, the root of the Ramones band rivalry came when Johnny Ramone stole Joey's girlfriend and married her. And, but this just goes, I think this is a case where passive aggressiveness doesn't work. I mean, because, the band stayed together for years after that. This all could have been avoided if Joey Ramone had just gone to his buddy's house, said, "You stole my girlfriend," punched him in the face, right? Picked him up, dusted him off, and then they went back to playing. Yeah, that problem solved. No, don't stew about it when a good punch in the face can clear the air.
Just that way, we never would have had the song "The KKK Took My Baby
Away." Exactly.
Or if you make it as long as the Rolling Stones, you get to go full circles. They're best friends for 20 years, and they hated each other for 20 years, and now they're best friends
again. Yeah. Yep, and they should they be reincarnated, the whole process, according to Hindu law, will probably repeat itself. But yeah, what was the idea of the Rolling Stones reincarnated just like knocked the thought right out of my head that I was going to say. But yeah, just if you don't get along, the idea is just throw a couple of punches. Now that's probably not common politically correct psychobabble psychology anymore.
No.
Right. I mean, it was, even as short a time as when I was in school. I remember in elementary school, my parents sent me to a Catholic school. And there were a couple of times when the teacher saw that there was bad blood in, it was like 3rd, 4th grade. When the teacher saw that a couple of kids weren't getting along, really, and it was, causing trouble in the whole classroom, she just said, "Go to the back of the room and settle it."
Damn.
Yeah,
I would literally start a federal investigation if that happened today.
It would. I mean, D.C. Department of Children and Families would be involved. Parents would be rioting. Yeah. But no, I know and yes, I'm here. This really, as Lou Reed, said in one of those old songs, those were different times, and it worked. I mean, one of the kids with the problem was myself and one of the bullies, I guess he was, in the classroom. And we were interrupting the classroom, calling each other names and stuff. She goes, get in the back of the classroom and settle it, straighten it out. So we went in the back, threw a couple of punches, wrestled around a little bit. See, and it was really smart because what this teacher did, I mean, she didn't let us get hurt, obviously. She let it go for maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And, most kids don't want to fight, really, really fight and draw blood anyway. So, she let us just wrestle around, throw a couple of half-ass punches, pulled us apart and said, "Okay, right, happy now, and now go sit down." But it worked. It worked. I mean, then, me and that kid were friends.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Now, when parents get involved, when the DCYF gets involved, when the federal government gets involved, when, God help us, minority advocacy groups get involved.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, then that leads to the trouble. Kids, we usually work it out ourselves.
Al Sharpton be showing up.
Oh, yeah, Al Sharpton, yeah, he'd be showing up with a kid all covered with shit. So it's like, yeah, she was raped and then they shit on her. I still remember that. So there's things, and I guess we're looking backwards in this show. So yeah, I mean, and I was young when that happened. I remember it coming on the TV, and yeah, the accusation was that this woman or girl, actually, Tina, had been raped and rolled in. I don't remember all the details,
Yeah.
but it turned out to be a complete hoax. I mean, it was a complete Al Sharpton hoax, and I think that discredited women's rights, rape, and for civil rights for a while.
That's why he never became president.
Well, he's not dead yet. he's Donald Trump is now president.
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota.
Yeah, and did a good job.
Yeah, Dwight The Rock Johnson is thinking about running for president.
Yeah.
So don't count out Al Sharpton. I mean, the left wing of the Democratic Party is going to be looking for somebody under about 77 years old. So how old is Al Sharpton? He's got to be up there.
Yeah,
right?
he's got to be. I mean, he's been kicking around since he was born in 1954.
Yeah, and he's lost all that weight because
Yeah.
I guess they told him if he wanted to keep kicking around.
He looks like a lollipop.
Yeah. So he's in shape. He's ready for a presidential run. I can see it now. Not to bring politics into this show, but Joe Biden and Al Sharpton.
Wow.
How's that for a ticket?
Imagine that.
The geriatric, nearly in the nursing home ticket. Yeah. I don't know. Myself, personally, when it comes to politics, my general statement on the whole thing is like that soldier in the movie Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. And I think that mentality just about equals the condition of our political environment right now here in the good old United States. Is it me or I love it?
It's a content-rich environment.
It is. And yeah, I mean, I thought about doing this show today and talking about some, horror TV shows, horror movies, horror books. But we've said this before. And, Tony's pointed out a couple of times, and I'm in complete agreement. The stuff being written in today's horror, fantasy, dark fantasy, science, it's not as good as the real stuff.
Yeah.
It's not as good as, not that the stuff on the news is real. I mean, like I've said, and I was one of the first to say this before Donald Trump ran for office. Tony, you're a witness. I have said that I was one of the first, if not the first, to say that everything that you see in the media that claims to be news is fiction.
Yeah.
All of it. Left, right, middle. Fox, CNN, CBS, ABC, AT&T, whatever it's all fiction.
And myself having freelanced at some, I probably shouldn't say this because I continue to freelance at them, but as someone who's freelanced at some media outlets around town, I can definitely help concur that statement.
Yeah, as I remember a few years back when I first said that, Tony Jones tried to argue with me a little bit, but not anymore. No, just like I dragged into the open like a reeking corpse the whole concept of do-it-yourself music as opposed to do-it-yourself books.
Yeah.
I've been proven right on that one. And by the way, if anyone thinks that I'm not right about that self-published written word is awful and do-it-yourself music is, often very good. My wife just got a book that every so often, I forget what the name of the internet book club is, and they send their members books, and you read it and then you review it online. Well, one thing, it's rigged, as Trump and Hillary would like to say, because only if you write a good review for the last book they send you do they send you another one, or send you them often. My wife, she wrote a bad review, or not even a bad one, but she wrote a lukewarm review of a book they sent her, and they didn't send her another one for 6 months. And when they did send her another one, it wasn't a book published by one of the big publishing houses either. It was a self-published book from a publisher. Even, I like to read, and I've never even heard of it. So it's got to be.
And they probably charged that poor author for the privilege to be able to send that book out.
They didn't charge him enough. And this man, you know what I'm going to do? Like, this is the home of all things horror, and and I guess there are some things in theory that are too horrible even to be discussed or read on the air on this show in theory. But no, I'm gonna break away with all rules of decency, and I think the next show, Tony, and you remind me about this. I am bringing this copy of the self-published book that my wife had inflicted upon her by this rotten son of a bitch that she read 2 pages of it and she was traumatized.
I was just going to ask if she made it through the whole thing.
She read 2 pages. I picked it up first, as a matter of fact, and I started reading it and I started laughing. And I said, you're not going to. I told her, I said, you're not going to believe this. And I started quoting from it, and she just looked at me. She says, it can't be. So I said, fine. Anyway, but being at work on third shift, when you're on third shift, you can endure more things than usual. And
if there's no other form of entertainment, you're willing to read just about anything.
Right, and like my supervisor warned me against like jerking off to pornography because she said there's cameras everywhere. So they might have caught me once, and they just kind of let it slide.
They still need you there, so it doesn't matter.
They still need me there. Yeah, and nobody important saw it. But so I made it through about 1/3 of this book and skimmed the rest. Now my wife, but again, I have a thicker skin when it comes to I'm used to grade B and Z and horror films. I'm a big fan of those. So I have a thicker skin for incompetence and idiocy than my wife does. No, she survived 2 pages. And I said, how far did you get? And she looked at me with like horror. Like, the same horror in her eyes as when she thought Hillary Clinton was going to be elected president. Even though she doesn't like Donald Trump either. But she was horrified at the idea of Hillary. And she looked at me with horror in her eyes. The quintessential Lovecraftian, has seen something unspeakable. And she said, I read 2 pages of it. And I think I am going to bring that very book into this studio. And you think that reading from the fabled Necronomicon would send people insane? I'm going to read not more than a paragraph.
Now, there's one mistake that I see that gets made with both self-publishing literature, if we can call it that, and self-publishing music.
Okay.
And that is, and I spoke at an authors convention a few weeks ago, and this really clicked into my mind that.
Just not to interrupt you, but which authors convention was that?
It was, I think, Rhode Island Authors Association. It was a pretty big event. Actually.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And these people that are selling their self-published books hump in there hundreds and hundreds of copies of the books, which they in fact had paid for. Now I'm sure they get a little bit of a discount the more that they buy and stuff. But as a veteran of cons, like, why would you hump 600 copies of your book to this convention? And why would you buy them?
Well, like you said, they bought them because it's cheaper in bulk.
Yeah. But not if they're going to be sitting somewhere collecting dust.
Well, no, but there is such a thing as self-delusion. I mean, now we both know, musicians who have recorded CDs.
Basements full of stock.
Basements full, yeah. I mean, hundreds of thousands of copies. They had big ambitions.
Yeah.
And same thing for these self-published authors. I mean, they somehow took it into their heads that the only reason they can't find a major publisher is because nobody appreciates their genius. And, But, I've seen the same thing at, I think, it was Comic-Con or Rock and Shock. Yeah, the New England Horror Writers. Same thing. They showed up with boxes full of these. Yeah, why not?
Why not put out even liberally 25, and then if you sell 25, you hump another 25 in at that point.
Right, especially because this is the age of publishing on demand.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't. What would you say the ages are of the folks with these thousands of copies that you saw?
It's the upper ages.
Upper age. Yeah. See, that's what it is. Yes.
And folks that maybe had been signed in the past put out a few books, and then now we're on their own. And
Right. So, yes, they're not really comfortable with the publishing on
Yeah.
demand or the internet
Yeah.
or web or whatever however you want to put it.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and there they sit with.
yeah.
Now, I'm surprised that
There
the
they
environment.
sit brokenhearted.
Yep. And I'm surprised that they haven't been criticized by the environmental movement yet.
Yeah.
I mean, how many, just the trees that were cut down,
Yeah,
to produce those thousands of copies
so they can sit in your basement.
so they can sit in the basement. Well, or on the table at a convention
Yeah.
with nobody
and
buying
then
it.
back in the car.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned once on the show or somewhere about I went to years ago, it was quite a few years ago. I went to Nikon, the New England Writers Conference, and they have the authors signing night, and the authors bring their books, and there was this one kid who was notable by the amount of volumes that he brought. He managed to fill a whole folding table full of
Wow.
copies of his book, which was his first book. I don't think it was self-published. I think it was maybe like a mid-list author. And in other words, they published his book. He didn't have to pay for it, but he paid for it in humiliation at the convention because he didn't know the first thing about socializing. So he basically set up his folding table of about a few hundred books and opened up his folding chair, sat there in the middle of the room. Yeah, I mean, even the guest of honor didn't sit in the middle of the room, except this kid did. And he just sat there, and everybody just walked around him on the place. You're kind of like avoiding a big mud puddle in the middle of the parking lot.
And I know we've talked about it before, so I won't belabor the point, but those are the same people who will say, this convention sucks.
Yeah, this
It's the convention's fault, not theirs.
Right, the convention sucks, or, well, again, musician and author and artist, whoever it is, it's fixed. You can't you can't get anywhere unless you know somebody. And the two of us here and sitting in this studio right now are there to tell you, no, that's not true. You actually have to function like a promote.
Yeah.
I was going to say promoter, but yeah, right. That like
I
marketing promoter.
thought you were going to say pimp.
Oh yeah. That's the impolite way to do it. Yeah. I mean, you have to pimp your wares.
In wrestling terms, you have to put yourself over.
You have to let Pat Patterson grope you before you get put over. Yes, you have to do nasty things. I mean, as I say, my favorite is always of pimping the music. Chuck Berry is one. They asked the old 1950s rock for the innovator of the electric guitar in rock and roll. So all credit to him. But they asked Chuck Berry, why what made you stop playing rock and roll? He said, for the money. And they said, well, where do you get the ideas for your songs? He says, well, he figured, kids like cars, they like girls, and they like money.
Yeah.
So he said, that's what the stuff I put in my songs. And they said, which is your favorite song you've ever wrote? He says, whatever one made the most money. I mean, this is the literal conversation. I mean, I'm not ad-libbing here. I'm not improv, but this was the interview. And then Kiss is shameless. Kiss was musicians just long enough to write enough songs to pimp. I think probably at this at a very early point, songwriting became the least enjoyable part of the music business for them, and probably a lot of other bands.
Yeah.
I get the feeling the Rolling Stones went through that phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, speaking of that, it happens to be Kiss, but it's amazing the stuff you can find on YouTube. On YouTube, I found, and it broke up my dreary shift at work, a tape of Kiss in their practice space
Oh God.
before their first album. In other words, when they were like just four idiots in a practice space. Somebody hit the record. Somebody recorded on a tape recorder. And now I think it was 3 years later, they were selling out arenas. So that just goes to give encouragement to anyone who says it's fixed and you have to know somebody and you can't do it. Okay, somebody did it. Actually, anybody Well, I guess, I don't know. Is that, I guess knowing somebody helps. I mean, we can't be totally fictional here. At least not at the moment. I mean, it helps. But, everybody starts knowing nothing, really, when it comes right down to it. And, let's go. Speaking of, let's go. That's not really much of a segue, but let's go, especially since we're not playing Kiss. But let's go back to the music. The Evil Streaks. Now, this is a band that, I don't know, they're not local. They're regional.
Yeah.
I guess, regional. And if they just put my call is that if they just put a little bit more effort into the marketing angle of the marketing end of things, they'd be up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, and this is The Curse here on the Haunted Cabaret on Rhode Island Free Radio. That was the Evil Streaks, The Curse. And as usual, the time has run out on us almost before we knew that the time was running. That Twilight Zone effect I often mention. Which, by the way, they're showing all the episodes of the Twilight Zone on Netflix, so I'm getting less sleep than usual.
It's a great time of year for binging stupid stuff.
It is. It is.
Including the Three Stooges.
I got a box set of that. Well, yeah, that's on. Is that Netflix too, or is that Hulu? Or something?
And a few of the on actual terrestrial TV too.
Oh, okay. But one thing I do notice, and I was thinking, while we were listening to that song, is that everybody, wish for the new year. Okay, my wish is that, and because I've noticed this, everything I've been listening to, reading, or watching, the people that made it are either gray-haired, dead for a long time, or in other words, it's everything that I've been listening to, reading, or watching was made by people old or a long time ago or in the past. So my wish for the new year, and you better get out and effing do it, because I'm getting a little impatient here, because see, when I have to talk and play and listen to and read only old stuff, it looks like I'm being nostalgic and old. I resist time. I resist aging. And the best way for me to do this is for new stuff to come out. Are you listening? Are you listening? I want new music to listen to. New bands out there putting on shows. Last week, Tony, I was looking for a show to go to on a night off. I couldn't find one. I went through friggin' Facebook. The bands we like, dun 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 dun. None of them.
Too cold.
I don't know what they're doing, but probably jerking off and being filmed somewhere. But yeah, I want new bands, new music. I want some new good horror stories out there to read, and some good movies to watch. I mean, I'm watching a movie. It's like, yeah, okay, it's from 15 years ago. Yeah. Right? That's not good. I want new.
That reminds me, I know we're out of time, but I finally watched Kong Skull Island.
What do you think? I thought it had a few moments and it sucked.
Yeah, it was for a 2017 movie. It was all right, but I wouldn't load it up and watch it again. No,
and what especially bothers me is that's the prequel to Godzilla versus King Kong, which that's going to really suck. So all we can count on it, we can hope for Toho Studios. Come on, bring some stuff our way. All right, and on that note, on that disgruntled but hopeful note, let's go out with a little. Let's do some Exhumed. One of my favorite metal songs, Vacant Grave, closing out the Haunted Cabaret this week here on Rhode Island Free Radio. Nighty night.